All right, it says I'm live. Hello, hello, good afternoon. It's early afternoon. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm the Chasing Christian. And if you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you identify as a son and daughter of God, then you're a chasing Christian too. That's because Hebrews 12 lets us know that our sonship is legitimized by being chastened by the Lord as a father corrects and disciplines his children. In addition to that, we're told that it is for our profit or benefit to be partakers of his holiness and bear the fruit of peaceable righteousness. And it's also admittedly confessed to being a grievous and or depending on what version you're reading, painful process. Hi, Shaquata. Good to see you. Happy Tuesday and bless you. But the best part about it when we're being chastened by the Lord is that it's a signifier of his love for us. So we can trust the Lord that when we're going through that grievous and painful process of being disciplined by God, that it is coming from a place of his love, which is a safe place to be. Howdy, howdy. Thanks, Shakana, for stopping in. But clicking on this video, we're going to pray through Psalm 53. And Psalm 53 is basically identical to Psalm 14. And so I'm just going to go review over that video we did in my notes for Psalm 14. But I just wanted to kind of read this distinction here just to kind of get an understanding. So there are very subtle differences for Psalm 14 and 53. They only change, I think, in just one verse. My study Bible says verse 5. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Shaquana. I appreciate that. Oh yeah, Psalm 23. We went over that. That one was one of my favorites. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Oh man, yeah, we went over that. It was really, really good. And one of my favorite things was learning about what it meant when a shepherd pours the oil over the sheep. And I learned that it was to heal them for any cuts and abrasions, also prevent injury. And another thing was to protect them from, insects that would get into their ear and eye holes and their noses and would cause them harm and even lead to blindness and death. So, when God pours that oil upon us as his sheep, it's like not only is it healing, but it's also a protective measure. And it just speaks so much about God and our relationship with him as his sheep. So yeah, that was a really cool one when we went over Psalm 23. That one was fun. Um, yeah, I've been going through basically every single one of them. So today, yeah, we're at 53, but it's been awesome to see God moving through every single one of them. Thanks for joining me. This is fun. But yeah, so the distinction between Psalm 14 and 53 is just that they're pretty much written with a different music. Like these are all songs, and so they're different tunes that they're written to. Another difference is subtly where verse 14, I mean, Psalm 14, verse 5 and 6 says, "But they are overwhelmed with dread, for God is present in the company of the righteous. You evildoers frustrate the plans of the poor, but the Lord is their refuge." And so, thank you. But the difference here is for Psalm 53:5, it says, "But there they are overwhelmed with dread, where there was nothing to dread. God scattered the bones of those who attacked you. You put them to shame, for God despised them." And so the difference is Psalm 14 focuses more on God's deliverance of the righteous, while Psalm 53 focuses more on God's defeat of the wicked. And so it's just that change there in verse 5. So, with that being said, as we're praying through the psalm, we can just, I guess, shift a little bit to the left and focusing on, rejoicing in God's, the overcoming of the wicked, and particularly in our lives, which you've been seeing through the past 52 Psalms, that God is the victor in every battle, and he causes us to be overcomers and victors as well. So, with that being said, I'll do a small recap of Psalm 14 because it's exactly the same, literally, except for one verse. But Other than that, we can just go ahead and pray. But this one, like Psalm 14, is a wisdom psalm, meaning that it bears the wisdom and instruction on how the godly are to live. And we know this is another psalm of David. And we also know that in terms of the relationship we see between man versus God, is that there's this fool that in their heart they say there is no God. They partake in corrupt and evil actions. That it's because of their disbelief of God, and they don't even dare or bother to pray or call upon Him. And so God's response to that fool is gripping their hearts with terror. And again, like we've seen in verse 5, is scattering the bones of his enemies, which are typically the wicked, and putting them to shame. We see that a lot. Um, yes, David really is a man of valor. My goodness, he really had a heart after God. And you see that because in his psalms, particularly the wisdom psalms like 14 and this one here, you see that when he prays about constantly asking the Lord to show him his heart, and constantly asking the Lord to stay in his presence, that he has definitely gained the wisdom of God. I think a lot of people talk about the wisdom of Solomon, obviously, but you really see that David was exhibiting that wisdom as well. The wisdom psalms look very much like Proverbs. The wisdom psalms look very much like Ecclesiastes. And and so, we can't sleep on David. David actually had a lot of wisdom, and I'd like to think that obviously his son surpassed him in that. But yeah, he definitely was a king that really walked in God's wisdom. And speaking of that, in terms of the psalm, where he also lets us know that God, in a response to his people, those who are walking in his wisdom, they're the ones who are, the scripture says that God is looking down from heaven on all of earth, looking around to see who is wise and who is seeking him. And so seeing those two together, I think that is, my Bible's right over here, in verse 2, looking to see if anyone is truly wise, if anyone seeks God. It's put together because the wisest thing we could do is seek God, and the wisest thing we could do is seek his wisdom. And so having those two together, wisdom comes from being in the presence of God, seeking his presence, seeking his law, seeking his heart for things, his will. And it's not like you have to strive for the wisdom. That wisdom comes from just sitting at the feet of God, the way I think it was like Mary and Martha. I can't remember, I don't want to mix it up, but I think I believe it was Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus while Martha was kind of freaking out, trying to host and cook in the kitchen. And she was so upset. And she was like, Lord, she's not helping me host. And he's like, surely I tell you, Mary's at the right spot, here at my feet receiving. And so that's kind of the heart posture that David is showing. And that it's saying where when God's looking for somebody who, anyone on earth, it says he's watching in verse 2, for anyone on earth who has wisdom, and then says if anyone is seeking him, then we know that seeking him, desiring to be in his presence, that's where that we draw that wisdom from. We also know James tells us that God's wisdom he gives so generously. He desires for us to walk in his wisdom. Yes, it's so good, Shaquata, to pray for wisdom daily. It is so necessary. We need it. We need it. Wow, you teach on that? Oh goodness. Okay, so she already knows. Listen. That is exactly on point. And so what we learn from this psalm, same as Psalm 14, is that God is a protector and a restorer. He's also the one to put the wicked to shame. God is also omnipresent and omniscient. He's examining everyone on earth to see who is seeking him and who is bearing his wisdom. And he is also, in the same way, examining the hearts of the wicked. And so, with this, again, if we're going back and referencing Psalm 14, is that the promises of God that we can pray through. And in terms of praying, we're not asking for the promises of God. Second Corinthians, I think it's 1 Corinthians 2 and 10 or Second Corinthians 1 and 2 10. I gotta mix it up. But